It's Ramsey Dewey over here in Shanghai, China. I'm over at the gym. I don't have a tripod. I'm doing a handheld video today. Bear with me. If you get dizzy, too bad. So we have a question today from Guardian Chaos who says, "Hey Ramsey, I have a question." Great, I've got some answers. I'm a recent Kung Fu instructor. I got my black belt in May of this year, and I've heard that I should be called Sifu or Shifu. Does it matter which one I choose? I've always said Shifu, but some people say that it has to be Sifu. So a couple of red flags went off in my mind when I read this question. First of all, you didn't tell me what your martial art is called. Kung Fu is not a martial art. Kung Fu is not a martial art. It's not. It is an attainment of a certain level of skill. So you can attain Kung Fu in a martial art. For example, if your martial art is Yongquan, Wing Chun, for example, you can attain Kung Fu in Yongquan. Okay? If your martial art is Hongjia, right? You can attain a level of Kung Fu in Hongjia, for example. Okay? Anyway, that's being nitpicky. Maybe you just didn't want to throw some more random Chinese words at me. But it never ceases to amaze me how often people will say, I practice Kung Fu, but they don't actually know what their martial arts style is called. And it's mind-boggling to me. It happens a lot. Like some people might be training in some bastardized hybrid of 5 different styles passed down from one guy to another and mixed with something else, and they don't even know it, and they just call it Kung Fu, and you ask them, well, what style is it? I don't actually know. Anyway, congratulations on your promotion. The second red flag is about black belts, though. Let's talk about that. If we want to be pedantic about Chinese culture, let's talk about black belts. Belt ranks, black belts are a Japanese thing. It's a Japanese thing started by Jigoro Kano, the founder of judo, and it dates all the way back to like 1890 something. Okay? Belt ranks weren't really mainstream until like around 1920 in Japan. And so Chinese martial arts never had Japanese belt ranks. And so it's very, very strange to me, especially when we're discussing what is the correct Chinese etiquette as far as Chinese martial arts goes, to have Japanese belt ranks. There's a huge cultural rift between the Chinese and the Japanese, in case you didn't know. Like, man, especially with the older generation, there are a lot of folks in the older generation who are like, what's the word I'm looking for? Super racist against the Japanese. They hate their guts because of wartime atrocities back in World War II. And it's not as much of a big deal with the younger generation, but to some extent, it still exists in the public conscious. So the idea of bringing in like Japanese traditions to replace Chinese traditions is it's very weird, kind of anathema over here. Anyway, so if you're asking for how we should conduct ourselves in Chinese martial arts, that is something to consider. But that aside, again, congratulations on starting your own class, starting to coach. That is great news. Now, Shifu, Sifu, what's the difference? The standard Mandarin pronunciation of that word is Shifu. What does it mean? It means sir. Sir, did you know that? There are 2 ways to write it in iconographic characters, and both of them basically mean the same thing. Sir. You would call anyone, any male person you want to pay any type of respect to, speak to respectfully, Shifu. You don't ask other people to call you Shifu. It just means sir. If you ride a taxi here in Shanghai and you talk to the taxi driver, you call him Shifu. Excuse me, sir, could you take a left right here? Could you stop right here? Etc. Shifu, 在这里可以听 Right? Sir, can you stop right here? So I'm a big proponent of pick a language and stick to it. Pick a language and stick to it. if you are teaching classes in English, in an English-speaking country, why would you ask them to call you sir in a different language? That doesn't make sense to me. My very first martial arts class I took was a Taekwondo class, and my coach was from Korea. He was a 6th degree black belt from Korea, native Korean speaker. And it kind of surprised me because in spite of the fact that Korean was his native language, he taught the class in the United States in English, and we called him sir. He didn't ask us to call him the Korean equivalent of sir. That was it. We just called him sir. Yes, sir. No, sir. And there's something magical about that because in an English-speaking country, people know what that means. Sir carries a level of respect and dignity that transcends your martial arts school. If you have some secret magical code word that you only use in the school, and you step outside and that's suddenly meaningless in the rest of your life in every other facet. Sir, on the other hand, sir or ma'am, depending on what you are, that has a certain level of power, transformative power in the culture. And I'll tell you why. Do you remember those old reruns of Leave It to Beaver? Do you ever watch that TV show from the 50s, sitcom about a little rascally kid and his older brother, and they would sometimes get into wacky hijinks, but at the end of their day, their father would pull them aside, give them a lecture, and teach them an important lesson about life. And then they would call him sir, yes, sir, no, sir. They would speak to their father that way. And I remember thinking, that's kind of different, because in the modern world, you don't hear children being that respectful to adults, generally speaking, let alone to their own parents. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, sir, etc. And I think that's kind of something we should probably bring back. You can help bring that back, sir. Right? Again, I'm a big proponent. Pick a language and stick to it. There are jiu-jitsu and judo nerds like, say, John Danaher, bless his heart, who loves to use the Japanese terms for everything. For example, when talking about triangle chokes, you'll be like, the sankaku jime illustrates the fundamental asymmetry of the human body, juxtaposing the strength and size of the lower extremities with the diminutive nature of the upper extremities. And it's like, you're just using all these $5 college words to try to sound smart. Sankaku jime, it has more syllables. It sounds more magical when you say it in an exotic language that people don't understand. It just means triangle choke. But it sure makes you sound smarter in a way when you use all these fancy words no one else uses or knows, right? It seems that way. But is that really what's happening? I don't think so. To me, it kind of comes off as sounding pretentious. Here's something pretentious. Take a look at my shirt. I love Street Fighter. One of my favorite characters is Chun-Li. In English, we say Chun-Li. But imagine if I was like, actually, the correct Mandarin pronunciation is Chun-Li. Chun, not Chun. You nerds, get it right. Like, who would do that? Well, I just did. But no, I'm not going to be that guy, because nobody likes that guy. Man, nobody likes that guy. And it always makes me laugh when I hear martial arts instructors demand that somebody call them some Asian title for teacher or sir or master. You know what master actually means? It just means teacher. It's an antiquated English word for teacher. For example, if you read the King James Bible, written in Victorian English, and a young man comes up to Jesus, and in the Victorian English it says, "Good master, what shall I do that I might inherit eternal life?" This young man says this to Jesus, "Good master." And what's he saying there? He's saying teacher or rabbi, which is just the Hebrew for teacher. He's not saying that you are the master of my soul and I'm your slave or something like that. He's just saying teacher. So it is kind of funny that we still use these terms in traditional martial arts like master and grandmaster when all it really means is this guy's the teacher. What's a teacher? It's like an instructor. Oh, but instructor is more diminutive than teacher. Is it? Instructor instructs, a teacher teaches, a professor professes. It's kind of the same thing in a way. But a coach coaches. What do people call me when I teach? Coach. Now, as far as the cultural connotations of Shifu and Sifu, Shanghainese, the Shanghainese language and the Shanghainese dialect of Mandarin, two different things. There are over 400 different languages here in China. Did you know that? Like over 400 different languages. Every major city is going to have their own local language. For example, here in Shanghai, Shanghai is home of the third largest language group in China after Mandarin. Then there's Cantonese that's spoken in Hong Kong, Guangdong, and Macau, right? No, I'm sorry, it's not spoken in Macau. They use traditional characters up there. I got those conflated in my mind for a second. Anyway, Shanghainese, it's a whole different language, and that kind of blew my mind when I first got here. I was like, what? I thought it was just like Chinese and maybe a couple other dialects, and there's all kinds of languages here, right? In the Shanghai language, there's no sh sound. So all the sh sounds become s sounds. So in Shanghainese, people speak Mandarin. They speak a Shanghai dialect of Mandarin, which is different than the Shanghai language. And they'll say Shanghai instead of Shanghai, right? If you're counting, E, R, sun, S. Okay. The number 10 gets confusing with the number 4. 4, S, 10, sh. But in the Shanghai dialect, S. There you go. And then Shanghainese is totally different language. So in Shanghai, they would say Sifu. With a Shanghai accent, it would be Sifu. But again, in standard Mandarin, Shifu. And last time I talked about this word, a bunch of people wrote, well, actually, Ramsey, the other word for Shifu that my Shifu uses actually means like honored father, what? It's just a respectful title like sir. And if you don't think sir is respectful enough and you deserve something more than that, you probably don't deserve to be a coach or an instructor or a teacher, let alone a sir. Learn some humility if that's the case. If you walk around demanding that people call you like Kungfu, Shifu, Shidoshi, Grand Master, whatever, some honorific martial arts title in a foreign language, that's like the dumbest thing I can imagine, to be honest. So it's, what for? What for? Maybe you're trying to appease somebody who wants to have some sort of authentic Asian-seeming experience when they go to a Chinese martial arts school to learn a Chinese martial art, so they want to learn some Chinese words to go along with it. If so, okay, fine, I guess, give the people what they want, but at the same time, let's bring back sir, let's bring back ma'am, let's bring back the honorific titles in our own languages, right? I know I have a lot of viewers from South America, Mexico, Spanish-speaking countries, right? What do you call people in your language, right? What do you call them? Señor. Señor. Literally means Lord, as in that old English connotation, Lord and Lady, an honorific title for somebody important. But in modern Spanish, you will call somebody Señor, like Mr. Mr. in English is related to the word master. which means teacher, right? Mr. is very similar to saying sir. It's just a polite thing to do, a polite thing to say. So, why do we ascribe so much importance to exotic sounding foreign words like they're magical sigils or magical spells that we need to cast in a martial arts school? It's not magic. It's hard work over long periods of time. Kungfu can be translated a few different ways. And if you translate it literally, it sounds kind of goofy. Fu, the character there, can mean man or husband or companion. And then gung is like effort, skill, talent, ability, work. So it's like your saddled companion married to the work, basically. Kind of odd. So if you are married to the work, married to the effort, married to the result of your hard work and talent and ability and time and blood, sweat, and tears to develop a high level of skill, is when you attain Kung Fu in your martial art. That's what it really means. So if you don't have a high level of skill, you have not attained Kung Fu. So all these folks saying, Kung Fu sucks. Kung Fu sucks. You don't know what Kung Fu means. And the people who suck at martial arts don't know what it means either. More important than what your students call you is your interactions with your students. Don't become a cult leader. I've made a few videos on that. It's a slippery slope. And it happens more often than you might think. And Craig Jones did a podcast a while back with Keenan Cornelius, and they basically said, yeah, eventually martial arts schools tend to turn into sex cults. And they're only partially joking about that, because it's happened a lot. So be very careful about the way you speak to others, the way you treat others, the way you posture and position yourself as an authority figure, right? As soon as you start making demands, call me Shifu, call me master, call me... Don't make it weird, dude. Thanks for watching. Now get out there and train.